Welcome back to That's DPI. I'm Zach, and that's Tyler over there, and we are going to bring you guys our first ever stadium review content. So this past weekend, we were in Buffalo, New York, to visit Highmark Stadium in its final season in the NFL. It will not be in use next year, as Buffalo will be transitioning to their brand new stadium, which is on site right next door to Highmark Stadium. But we had a blast. Highmark was so much fun, and we can't wait to get into all the nitty-gritty details and rank this stadium and compare it to other stadiums that Tyler and I have visited in the past, including Lambeau, Arrowhead, and AT&T Stadium in Dallas, Texas. So, Tyler, I'm going to pass it to you to get us started. Kind of give some background on this trip.
Yeah, so the stadium is in its last year of existence before it moves on. So I'm on a quest to go to all of the NFL stadiums. So I had to go to Highmark Stadium. It's the classic 1990s dynasty of the AFC, Buffalo Bills and Jim Kelly's team. I had to check it out. So we flew into Buffalo Friday night. We got there late Friday night. We actually stayed on the Canadian side. Saturday we did Niagara Falls, and then Sunday was all about football. We went to the game Sunday morning, and then we found a couple local bars downtown and some other dive bars to watch my team lose, and then we went to another bar to watch your team lose. So, but the Bills won. The
That's
stadium
what matters,
the
right?
team we came for was a victory for the Bills, and the first thing I noticed when we got on the property was how massive the new stadium's going to be. The new stadium's right next door, and I can't wait to go visit the new stadium.
Yeah, it looks
It looks so nice.
incredible. And give us some background on that new stadium. It's partially covered, right? But it's still an open roof stadium because the NFL basically told Buffalo, you're never going to host a Super Bowl. So they still made it an open roof stadium, right? Am I correct on that?
Correct. Correct. Now there's reasons that the NFL told Buffalo they'll never host the Super Bowl. Part of it is the unpredictable temperatures and weather patterns that exist for fans even outside of attending the game. Part of it is also the infrastructure in Buffalo. They don't have the hotel space and public transportation space to host the Super Bowl. So as a result, Buffalo wanted to maintain their cold temperature advantage to make it an open stadium. Now, the reason it's partially closed is a little bit for rain and snow for the fans, but it's to trap the wind. Buffalo is notorious for their swirling winds and missed field goals. I mean, wide right is a horrible term in Buffalo. One of them in the Super Bowl, one of them that lost them the game to the Chiefs in the playoffs. So this new stadium is actually going to prevent wind from being on the field. It's designed in that manner.
And that's a cool little design quirk because, there's other stadiums in the NFL that have those. There's the big bay windows in AT&T for Dallas. There's the noise enhancing architecture of the Seattle stadium. And there's also
Mm-hmm.
some other interesting quirks around the NFL. But it was really cool to walk up to Highmark Stadium from our parking spot and see the brand new one pretty much all done. The exterior is getting its panel set, and it's looking really, really nice. And it seemed like from conversations with Buffalo fans that I had, they're really, really excited about a lot of aspects of this new stadium that we'll get to here shortly. But it was really cool to see it right on site there.
Yeah, and one thing too is that with it being right next door, all of the current parking spaces that's around the stadium will still be there. So they don't need to find a new area for parking because parking and tailgating is huge in the pregame experience for Bills fans. So what we did to the audience is we didn't park in the Bills parking lots. We just felt that the parking prices for the stadium was pretty high. So we found a kind of a makeshift parking lot that a business charges to use their parking lot that was only about a half a mile from the stadium. So we walked about a half mile from our parking spot to a nearby business to the stadium, but it's one road. So even though it's a half mile, it was a very easy walk, I felt.
Yeah,
But there's still gonna be a lot of parking at the new stadium.
yeah, and the local business still had great lively tailgates there. There was tons of Bills
Mm-hmm.
fans, and they were all outside their cars having a good time, as we were. although it was a particularly, you mentioned the wind in Buffalo. We got a taste of that, right? 40-mile-an-hour gusts pregame. We even got some snow. It didn't stick because it wasn't quite cold enough yet, but it was nasty cold weather. So we were triple layered, quadruple layered a little bit to kind of withstand that wind in the tailgate and walking up to the stadium. So that's something to be aware of if you do visit Buffalo, new or old. After November 1st, you're going to be dealing with the gales of November.
Yeah, definitely layer up if you're going there. It's a fun atmosphere. Don't get me wrong, even with the cold, but layer up. I'm glad we got to experience that though. It was so cool, like experiencing a little bit of that northeastern little flurries, just a little bit of flurry of it snowing on us. I thought that was so cool.
It was excellent. It certainly added to the good vibes that were everywhere around Buffalo Stadium. Excellent fans. That was
Oh,
one
the
thing I
fans were
noticed.
fantastic. I've been to 12 NFL stadiums, including almost every Chiefs game for the past 7 years. I've never experienced a crowd where you can just chit chat and talk and strike a conversation with anybody around you. That was one thing that definitely stood out to me was how friendly the fans were.
Absolutely. It was incredible. And the business owners at the parking lot that we parked at were really nice as well. And everyone was super friendly. But after our walk to the stadium, we took a quick jaunt into the team store, which is right off to the side. Actually, I don't know if you did, Tyler, but I did.
I never went into the team store.
Gotcha.
It sounded like it was a good time. I'll let you talk about that.
Yeah, so I jaunted into the team store really quickly, and it was very impressive. It was a massive building, kind of off to the side of this. It was unconnected to the actual stadium building. It was a
But it was
separate,
within the gate still, right?
right. It was right inside the gates,
Okay.
but it was not. You know how kind of at some other stadiums there's like a within the concourse there's a team store. There were some like that within Buffalo along the concourse, but there was a massive team store building dedicated to shopping, and it had tons of selection. So if you are going to a Bills game and you don't have Bills gear, at least at Highmark, you were in luck because there's a massive selection of it and tons of stuff about, the farewell of Highmark Stadium. There's a lot of great gear related to that. So certainly a larger team store than I've ever seen at NFL stadiums, and I benefited from being not connected to the concourse, I feel. But that was kind of our
And
first stop.
that's saying something because you've of course been to Arrowhead. They have a very a pretty large team store. We've been to Dallas together, who has a whole floor of a team store.
Mhm.
And you've been to Cincinnati and a few other stadiums as well. So pointing out the team store actually says more than the audience might think.
For sure, and it's definitely was getting a lot of use. It was packed with fans, so certainly seemed like a good investment from the Bills. But that was kind of our first stop. As soon as we got in the gates, we're like, we've got to check out the team store, and so I did. Oh no,
I do have to.
guest star.
We have a guest speaker now. I love how you can very faintly hear the meow on
I
camera.
know, it's wonderful.
Um, Unfortunately, I do have to kind of change the vibe a little bit, though. My first experience inside the stadium wasn't a great one. I had to go to the bathroom right away, just as tailgating fans do. And there was a very long line, which makes sense. People are coming in. But when I got into the bathroom, and this is just right inside the main gates, there was only like 6 urinals and like 2 stalls. And that experience with the bathroom lines really didn't change throughout the game. I was pretty disappointed about some of the infrastructure within the stadium. There was lines everywhere. The concourse seemed really packed, and lines just seemed to move really slow. I think I probably missed probably about half of a quarter just waiting in line to go to the bathroom one time.
Yeah, I went to the bathroom twice, and that's about all you can afford to go in Highmark Stadium. I I say this without exaggeration. It is the single worst bathroom experience in a major sporting event venue that I have ever seen. The lines are unbelievably long and don't move, and it doesn't matter what time of the game it is. Tyler and I left with 8 minutes to go in the third quarter after we thought the halftime rush to the bathroom would be well over and everyone would be back in their seats. But no, it was still lines across the concourse, and the concourse, like you mentioned, is already really small. So having a line wrapping around the concourse only makes it feel tighter and less inviting. And we waited
This
at least 10
Go ahead.
minutes. And,
Oh,
and
it was honestly more 15 to 20 minutes to be of real minutes. It was about 10 minutes of game minutes.
right. And we it got so bad that you and I were talking, and it became clear to the fans around us that we are not from this area. And a fan turned around to Tyler and I and said, "Don't worry, the next stadium is going to have more bathrooms per seat than any venue in the NFL." And I was like, the fact that you know that means that this is
And the fact that they're
horrible.
announcing that too
Yeah, I
shows
was
that
like,
they're aware of the issue.
and so this is clearly a common feedback that Highmark and I'm sure the Bills get all the time, especially if Bills fans are so hyper aware of it. It's not something that I read about, and this is probably on me for not doing my research, but I was completely shocked to see the state of the bathroom lines.
And this is important because it's like I can hear the Bills fans in the comments right now. Like, you don't go to a Bills game to go to the bathroom. And that's correct. I go to a Bills game to watch the game from my seat after spending a few $100s to watch the game. So the fact that it took me over half a quarter to use the restroom was pretty disappointing. Now, when we get into our stadium ranking criteria, that's not a majority of my ranking. The crowd atmosphere is a big part of my ranking, and the crowd atmosphere was wonderful. The metal bleachers on the banging of the metal bleachers on third down was electric. That's not something I've ever seen before, and that was fun to be a part of.
It's something that it's one of those things that is going to stink about the new stadium. It was something that brought a lot of character to our seat sections because it's not like Arrowhead where there's individual seating all the way around through the whole capacity. We were in the bleacher section in the lower bowl, and man, everybody was wailing, and we all had thick winter gloves on so we could wail on those bleachers and really make some noise. I loved it. The crowd
One of the other
certainly
things. Go ahead, finish.
the
I
crowd
interrupted you.
No, you're good. The crowd certainly was not affected by the cold. They were just as lively as if it was 70 degrees.
And with that, and this is what I was going to say too, with the crowd being lively, I don't know if you noticed this as well, but it felt like a college game because no one sat. No one was sitting in those bleachers. Everyone was standing up, and it felt like a college student section, which is college student sections are famous for the most lively part of college football, and that was fun. That's another thing that haven't seen in any of the other 11 stadiums that I've been to was fans constantly standing at all times in the game. So that just kind of adds to more of what I talk about when I promote the crowd atmosphere of the stadium.
Definitely. The crowd atmosphere was a huge highlight. Bills Mafia did not let us down. And it's not like this is a huge rivalry, right? It's an interconference AFC NFC matchup between the Bills and the
Yeah.
Bucks. Yeah, I would have not judged the Bills at all if they, weren't as loud as if it was the New England Patriots coming to town or the Jets or the Dolphins doing battle. But it's they never even took a playoff. It was standing, banging on the bleachers, yelling. It was excellent.
Hmm.
And we haven't even talked about our favorite part of the crowd atmosphere, which is the song that they play after scoring.
That was fun.
It took
Hey, 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 hey,
Let's
let's
go
go
Buffalo.
Buffalo, let's go Buffalo, Buffalo
So
Bills make me want to shout.
yeah, so they played the song
That was
Shout.
so fun.
I believe it was originally recorded by the Ursay brothers, but Shout is their point scoring song. And Arrowhead doesn't really have anything like that. Neither does Dallas.
Hmm.
It's another thing that reminded me of college atmosphere. I felt like I was back in Manhattan at Kansas State, singing the Wabash Cannonball after we scored some points because everybody in the stadium knew it and it was so loud and all in sync. And luckily, the Bills scored a crap ton of points so that Tyler and I really got the hang of the song by the end of the third quarter so that when the fourth quarter scoring fest continued, we got to join in with all the Buffalo fans. That was an unforgettable part of the atmosphere that won't leave once you go to the new stadium. It's still going to be there because Bills Mafia is just going to move venues one couple of feet over. So it was great.
Yeah. I know that the Chicago Bears have a song. They've got like the Bear Down Chicago. I don't know if they sing that during the game though. So some teams that do some kind of chants include the Chiefs. They do the tomahawk chop. The Vikings do skull. Um, that's as far as I know. There's really not a lot, let alone a whole song that a catchy song that the entire fan base knows.
I know the
It's
Lions
certainly
have
one of one.
forward down the field, but it's not as catchy as the Bills song. Not even close. The
Okay.
Bills song is excellent, and the whole crowd clearly loves it, and for good reason.
The fireworks with it too. So at the very end, what they do is they sing the song, and at the very end, they go, Buffalo Bills make me want to shout. But on that final shout before play resumes, they like shoot off like a firework from each of the corners of the stadium. So that adds like a nice electric touch to it, also.
Yeah, we'll get into this when we rank our criteria, but this combined with the constant crowd atmosphere made for one of the most pleasant actual game watching experiences that I've ever
Mhm.
had at an NFL stadium. So it's not to be overlooked how incredible Bills Mafia made this game.
Absolutely.
But moving on
And then
to,
after the game too, I do, before we move on to actually ranking, I do want to talk about after the game as well.
I want to talk
After
about
the game,
concessions too, but yeah, we can talk.
okay, all right, here, let's talk about that before we go to after the game. Go ahead
Right.
there.
So also, as we mentioned with the concourses, they're pretty thin, but I took a lap around the stadium because I wanted to get sight lines from midfield and maybe check out some of the food options. They seemed pretty limited. There wasn't a lot of signature items. They did have hot chocolate on offer with fans, and they had your normal stadium fare, dogs, pretzels, all that jazz. Um, Beer out the wazoo, but there wasn't any signature options, nothing to make them stand out of the crowd in the concessions. And that's something that I hope to see change in the new stadium because I imagine they're fairly limited by the underlying infrastructure of how old this stadium actually is to provide more concessional options. But I know you got a
Similar,
hot chocolate.
yeah, and actually, I had a different concession experience. So when I go to stadiums, like I don't really look for signature food. I feel like signature foods is more of an MLB thing. It'd be nice to have some signature foods. Like if you're in Buffalo, find a spot that has wings. If you're in KC, find a spot that has barbecue. But I didn't really look for a lot of signature foods. What I saw was the price, and I was actually pretty satisfied with the price of the concessions. I got a souvenir hot chocolate. My girlfriend and I both went at the same time, and we each got a souvenir hot chocolate, and a slice of pizza. Now, their slice of pizza,
Oh yeah.
it's probably the size of a keyboard. It was very filling. I do not leave leftovers. I did not finish the pizza. So with the souvenir cup hot chocolate and the slice of pizza, and then to divide my bill, that was $22. $22 for a very filling pizza and a souvenir cup hot chocolate is actually pretty good when you think about stadium prices. So I was pretty satisfied with the concessions,
Right.
despite
And
maybe there not being that many options.
sure, and I think if you're going to have limited options, at least make sure they're good and affordable. And Buffalo certainly did
Hmm.
that because I feel like you can have two, but not all of them. You can't have great
Hmm.
signature options, cheap food, and um, good like tasting, right? So I'm glad that they hit on the cheap
Yeah.
and good tasting, and maybe skimped out on some of the more signature items. But it was just something worth mentioning and something that I think very easily could change at the new stadium with
Hmm.
more options around.
But as someone who, I'm not gonna say I've been to all the stadiums because I haven't, but I have been to enough. I have been to 12. I haven't seen signature foods at many NFL stadiums. Of the 12 that I've been to, I don't remember one signature food. I really do think that's more of an MLB fan experience.
Gotcha. So overall, then, compared to other NFL stadiums, fairly positive experience with the concessions. Then,
Yes. As someone who goes to Arrowhead every other week, Arrowhead is horrible with their concessions price. They will sell souvenir hot chocolates for about $20. Right about what I got in total would have been just the hot chocolate at Arrowhead. You could get real small Little Caesars pizza at Arrowhead for like another $10. What I get at Arrowhead, and this is a little hack for my Chiefs fans here, is I'm as a staff, I'm given a $20 voucher for food at Arrowhead. What I do, I go to Chicky and Pete's and I get a Philly cheesesteak. It's a very filling Philly cheesesteak and it's under $20. That's what I've seen the most bang for your buck at Arrowhead. But now going back to Buffalo, one Philly cheesesteak, about $20. A pizza and souvenir hot chocolate, 22 in Buffalo.
Yeah, certainly.
Kind of compare that how you will.
Gotcha. But yeah, let's go after the game because I feel like it was another positive aspect of the trip after the game. So
Yeah, after the game, we of course had to walk that half mile back to our car. And there was one main road that takes you, I believe, on the north side of the stadium. I was pretty worried about traffic because there were a lot of cars and there is a lot of parking. Traffic was not horrible. With it being one road, it actually, I feel like, made it flow well because there's no intersections, there's no people turning or leaving or going different directions. It's get on the road and go and go. And so it actually was a very positive experience getting out of the stadium, which again is something that not a lot of stadiums have. Downtown stadiums, you have to fight public transportation and public roads. Arrowhead, you have to fight the parking lot. Um, Dallas, you have to walk. We had to walk about a mile and a half to avoid paying $150 parking. Buffalo was a very good experience with our parking situation and where we were and the traffic flow out of there. I don't know if you thought the same, but as the driver, I thought it was fine.
yeah, I thought we got out in great time. I was expecting a lot worse. And not only that, when you're walking out of the stadium, there's clear and safe marked pedestrian walkways that don't have cars going across them. We walked straight down a kind of gated off pedestrian walkway that took us all the way to the sidewalk. We just hung a right and then we walked right to our car. It was fantastic. I was really happy with the exiting experience. So I think that's where the accessibility got a little bit better because I was fairly disappointed with the accessibility category before that until exiting the stadium went so smoothly
Mm-hmm.
for us.
Mm-hmm. It is something though for fans that are looking to go to Buffalo. Do you think you can get there without a car?
Um,
So if you're flying from New York City, or if you're a Wyoming fan, because we saw a lot of Wyoming fans. If you're a Wyoming fan and you want to go see your prize Josh Allen, can you get there without a rental car?
I'd say yes because there are designated Uber drop-off areas. We saw them working. Um, and it wasn't too far away from the stadium. I don't know what the prices of those would be because I didn't take one. So
Okay.
I think that you can, and I think it actually can be cheaper than parking at the stadium because you'll get up close, and I'm sure it's not $175 for an Uber to Highmark Stadium. So I think yes, you can get there without a
Okay.
rental car.
So I guess my advice to the viewers watching is if you're gonna come to Buffalo and you don't plan on renting a car, do your research on how much Ubers cost. If you're unless you're going week one, I would look at going on the Uber app during the end of the Bills game and just looking at what they're charging for that price. That's a good way to research Uber prices. You can also look at the Bills website for parking because I actually think there are some shuttles listed on the website. I didn't see any personally at the game, but while I was doing my own research, I think there are some shuttles. So those are two things that you can do to research going to a Buffalo Bills game is check Uber prices around the time of when you would need them and go to the Bills website for parking and transportation information.
Yeah, and what's great about all this advice is it's not going to change all that much. The new stadium is right there.
Yeah.
It's next to the parking lot. So definitely good advice when going to Buffalo. But did we want to move in to kind of final criteria, go over what earned Highmark each score that it got in each category, and then kind of wrap it up at the end with our total?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I rank state, I'm a teacher, so I have a rubric for everything. That's just what teachers do. We're nerds like that. So I'm pulling up my rankings right now. My I've got 5 categories. And they're kind of weighted differently. So I'll explain that, and then we can talk about how we view them as each category. So I've got crowd atmosphere. That is worth 30%. So when we give it a score on a scale of 1 to 10, you multiply that by 3. So a perfect score is a 30. That's how you get 30% weight. So when we get that, we'll mark it scale of 1 to 10, and we'll weight that out of 30, basically. My second category is appearance. That is also worth 30%. So crowd atmosphere and appearance of the stadium is 60% total. You can earn up to 60 points there. My next category is amenities and features. This is more of what's there to do around the stadium. Is it high tech? Is it easily just some extra things that could cause a fun fan experience? That's worth 20%. And then my final two categories are only worth 10% of the ranking. It is cost, and I factor cost in if it is a situation where it's a high profile team and it's expensive, or you're getting front row seats and it's expensive. I'll factor that in. So I'm kind of looking at more of the deal that I'm getting rather than just the exact dollar I'm spending. But cost is a thing that I grade. And then accessibility and location is my final category. This is it easy to navigate in and around the stadium? Is it accessible to get there? Is it easy to get there? Is it easy to get in and out of the stadium? So real quick, because I rambled, my 5 categories are crowd atmosphere, appearances, amenities and features, cost to attend, and accessibility and location. So with that, Zach, do you want to talk about the crowd atmosphere first?
Yeah, we touched on this probably the most out of any of these categories in kind of our lead up to the rankings. It absolutely deserves one of the highest rankings on this scale, because great fan traditions after scoring, incredibly loud and respectful fan base, and everything you want from a sporting event crowd atmosphere. Buffalo had. That would be my wrap up there.
I agree. The fans were so friendly. And there were a few Bucks fans too, and I didn't see any confrontation with the Bucks fans. So I do believe they're very friendly to each other. The song that got the crowd electric, the banging on the chairs. The Bills crowd is one of one in my opinion. So I gave it a 10 out of 10, totaling up to 30 points for this category for me.
Yes. And I would agree with that. We kind of did these rankings together at the bar afterwards. And so we would both agree that it's a 10.
So the next category is going to be appearance. Bill Stadium's unique. Don't get me wrong. It's a unique look, but it's not fancy. The scoreboards are small. It's a small crowd, or it's a small atmosphere, and it was built in the 70s, I understand. But when you look at stadiums like SoFi Stadium and Allegiant Stadium and Mercedes-Benz in Atlanta, or even US Bank, there's so many fancier stadiums that, as much as I liked the stadium and as much as I had fun, the highest I could give it is a 4 out of 10.
Yeah, and for me, the amalgamation of that 4 out of 10 is the video boards. There was no visible video board for people sitting on the end zone. You either had to crane your neck and look around at, admittedly, what was still a small video board, or squint across the field in view an almost illegible video board. There was that certainly was lacking, and it was one of the worst video board experiences I've seen. I've seen college stadiums with better video boards than Highmark, and so definitely below average in that category.
And to the audience as well, like I said, I'm a teacher. I've got a rubric for anything. So I want to read to the audience what I classify as a 4 out of 10 on experience. A 4 out of 10 is, quote, for appearance. I was on the wrong category. I'm sorry. A 4 out of 10 is, quote, aging noticeably, outdated design, and poor upkeep in some areas. It is aging noticeably. And again, part of that's why they're building a new stadium, but it is aging. There's not a lot of upkeep in the video boards. The concourses were small, so that's where it gets outdated as well. And it just it was kind of dirty and dark in the concourse as well. So that's where it gets aging noticeably. It's a wonderful stadium with a lot of character and a lot of charm, but it doesn't look great. So that's where we give it a 4 out of 10.
Right.
I believe amenities and features is next. Zach, you want to touch on that first?
Yeah, I thought that it was closer to average for amenities and features. The team store was excellent, and it was top of the line. But outside of the team store, there wasn't too much else besides the tailgating. Which do we factor amenities with tailgating? I believe, right?
I factor it in slightly. For example, one of the stadiums I went to also was the Oakland Coliseum. In and around the Oakland Coliseum is absolutely nothing but tailgating. So based on that, they should have gotten a 0 because there's nothing to do. But because the tailgating is so strong, I gave the Oakland Coliseum a 5 out of 10 in this category. So I do factor in tailgating a little bit. And as a result of that, the rankings that I get, because the tailgating atmosphere is really fun, but with there just not being a whole lot else to do, I can't bring it extremely high. So what I gave it was a 7 because you had mentioned the team store. That's a really cool feature as well. There are some cool photo ops around the stadium too,
Right.
and like you said, a good tailgating. So I did give it a 7. I gave it an above average ranking.
Right. And I think that's right about where it belongs. Once again, the fans are actually carrying this category because without the fans, the team store and the photo ops wouldn't crack this above average at all. But the fans certainly provide a lot of the entertainment, tons of music, tons of great tailgates as you walk up to the stadium. So I would put it close to Arrowhead, but maybe not quite Arrowhead. So 7.
Cost is the next one. Cost had a lot of different areas because I had talked about the concession stands prices being very reasonable, very good. Our tickets, we bought our stadium tickets in June. We were lower level in the end zone. We paid $242 a piece for lower level end zone tickets. We bought them in June, which another little advice to audience members as well. If you know you're going to go to a stadium, that's the time to buy it is mid to late June. When the schedule comes out, they start off high for people planning the trips. There's a midsummer dip. And then as the season gets closer again, the prices begin to rise again. So we got a very good price for our tickets. So I can't judge them too harshly on that, but the prices do get expensive if you don't buy them at the right peak.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's true with most sporting events, but even when we bought them at the lowest time, I still think that 242 is on the pricier side for lower bowl tickets in the NFL. But the Bills are a good team, so you are paying the good team tax to an extent.
Sure. And then so with that in mind, I could have given it a 7, maybe a 7.5 because the concessions and understandable prices. But what really brought it down for me was the parking. With there being so much parking, we still parked way out there because parking prices were over $100. They were over $125 to park in a stadium with a lot of parking spaces.
Yeah, and compare that to other stadiums around the NFL. I know that Arrowhead charges around $40 to park on premises.
I think it's 60. It's 60 if you have a
Okay.
prepaid pass, but that's still nowhere near 125.
Yeah, it was more than double that at Highmark,
Hmm.
and I just don't think it was worth that, and that's an exorbitant cost. So that
Hmm.
certainly is going to ding it. On top of paying the good team tax for your tickets, it's kind of one or
Hmm.
the other. If you're paying both, it quickly can become a very expensive trip if you just want to have a normal fan experience parking at the stadium.
Hmm. And this is kind of where I urge audience members to kind of do their research on ways to get to the stadium as well. But I give their cost a 6. It would be lower, but I understand the good team tax, so I'm a little bit more generous on there. But I give them a 6 out of 10.
And the reason they're not lower is because their concessions were affordable, which
Mhm.
definitely helps. If all three are bad, that's when you start getting into that price gouging territory.
And by the way, as well, a 6 out of 10 is not a D. It's not a D. I know in school we think of, oh, like an A is a 9 or a 10. Very few teams get a 9 in any category. A 6 or a 7 is an average number for a stadium. So the fact that they got a 10 in crowd atmosphere just shows how amazing it was. So me putting it at a 6 is just slightly below average.
Right. But moving on to our last category, right? I would believe is accessibility.
Yes, accessibility and location. So location is, of course, kind of where the stadium is in relation to other things to do, possible transportation, ports as well, along with navigation around the stadium. So, do you want to touch on that one first, Zach?
Sure. Yeah. So Highmark Stadium and the new stadium are actually located in Orchard Park, New York, which is outside the city limits of Buffalo. So it's a fair distance to drive to get back into downtown Buffalo, if that's where you're staying. So right off the bat, it kind of gets dinged for being pretty far away from most things that people want to do in Buffalo. And then moving past location and into accessibility within the stadium, this is where the bathrooms come in. It, like I said earlier, was one of the worst bathroom situations or the worst bathroom situation I've ever seen at a major sporting event. So it gets dinged heavily for that. Um, just no excuses to have a sporting event where bathrooms are so difficult to access, even at non-peak times. But leaving the stadium was a more pleasant experience than other places. So it certainly gets a little bit of a bump from leaving the stadium, but all around, this is a very poor category for Highmark, and probably one of the reasons why they are building a new stadium.
Yeah, the accessibility is absolutely horrible in Buffalo. I had a lot of fun. Don't get me wrong. I don't want anyone to think that any low category takes away the experience. But when we're ranking a stadium, the building is part of what we're ranking as well. And the accessibility was the most narrow concourse that I've ever experienced in any college, NFL, or MLB stadium. The Chiefs Stadium, Arrowhead Stadium, which opened up right around the same time is Highmark Stadium, has twice the size of their concourse. Um, and even the Washington Commanders Stadium, which is notorious for how horrible their structure is, still had a lot better efficiency within their concourse. At halftime, it was like what's it called? Standstill traffic,
Yeah,
gridlock. That's the word I'm looking for. It's like gridlock traffic during halftime. If you're trying to go anywhere, you're just swarmed, shoulder to shoulder. You can't move. You can't go back. There's not a lot of exits to get to your to get to like an extra area of the concourse. It's kind of where there's like a concourse when you walk in, and then another lower concourse. It's a nightmare with the concourse and the accessibility in and around the stadium. And as you said, it's in Orchard Park. It's not near anything else. I had to give it a 2. There is definitely a need for a new stadium, and that category is really what proves the need for the new stadium next door.
definitely. And so, kind of like you said, I wanted to reiterate that Buffalo was still a fantastic time, but this was certainly the low light of the experience and something that will be rectified in a year's time for Buffalo fans. And it wasn't just us. It seemed that the Buffalo fans knew about this detracting factor to their stadium. They were well aware that it was a disaster. So much so that they knew how it was going to be addressed in the new stadium. And they were telling us that actively. I think that's as much of an indication as any that that Highmark Stadium has a serious problem. But
Mhm.
like we said, it will be rectified soon.
So with that in mind, that's all of our categories. Let's total up the score. We'll figure out where we rank it on a scale of 1 to 10 based on our criteria and weighting system. I'll tell the viewers where I have that amongst the other 11 stadiums I visited. And then I have one final fun question for you before we end this video.
Sweet.
So, Zach, we agree that the crowd atmosphere is a 10 out of 10, correct?
Absolutely. Yep.
So that is 30 points. That is a category best. For context, the only stadiums that I have given a 10 to for crowd atmosphere is Buffalo, Kansas City, and that is it. Of the 12 stadiums I've been to, Chiefs and Bills fans are the only 10s on my list. For the appearance section, they went lower. We went with a 4. Is that correct?
That's right.
So a 4, that gives them 12 points because it's a 30% ranking. And then amenities and features, this is a 20% ranking. We gave them a 7. So this gives them 14 more points. So far we're at 30, 30, 40, 50, 54, 56 points. So far we're at 56 points through our first 3 categories. The next 2 are only 10%, so they get single digit points. Cost to attend, we gave a 6.
Yep.
And then accessibility and location, we gave a 2 out of 10. So totaling all that up, they get 64 points, giving them an overall score of a 6.4. So just slightly below average. My overall assessment is that the actual building is what brings them down, but that's going to be completely addressed in their brand new stadium. And if we were to go to a Buffalo Bills game next year, I have a feeling that they crack top 2, if not number 1 stadium that I visited. So Highmark Stadium gets a 6.4 out of 10. I do just want to go through my 12 list so that they kind of understand where I'm ranking it to. So my stadiums list in 12th place that I've been to is with a 5.3 is Northwest Stadium. That's the Washington Commanders. 5.6 is the Nissan Stadium of the Titans. 5.9 is number 10. That is the Hall of Fame Stadium. Very similar to the Bills Stadium in the sense of like the crowd's great and the things to do are plentiful, but the actual building is a high school stadium at the end of the day. 9 is the Oakland Coliseum, getting a 6.0. And then Highmark Stadium is now in 8th place out of 12 with a 6.4. And then the stadiums above it are Arrowhead Stadium for the Chiefs with 6.7, Empower Field of the Broncos, and Lucas Oil Stadium both getting 6.8. Lambeau Field of the Green Bay Packers gets a 7.0. State Farm Stadium of the Cardinals gets a 7.6. AT&T Stadium of the Cowboys gets a 7.7. And the best stadium that I have been to so far is US Bank Stadium, home to the Minnesota Vikings, getting an 8.1 out of 10. So all in all, pretty fair stadium. They do get a 6.4 out of 10, putting them 8 out of 12 on my list.
Sure, and we can't wait to visit the new Bill Stadium. But obviously, our next priority is to expand that list to more stadiums and more teams, so that we can accurately assess, the entire NFL fan experience. Really, it's a pretty big endeavor by you that I'm glad I get to tag along on. So, fair ranking
Now,
for
my
Highmark.
final question that I do have for you is, throughout that day that we were at Highmark Stadium, what was your favorite part?
Ooh, man, there were so many good parts of this stadium, but I think my favorite part would be celebrating the win with the Bills fans after the game. It was so much fun. All the fans that were around us, we talked about how nice they are, but we had kind of built up a little bit of a relationship with all the fans around us. So we got to talking with them, celebrating the win. We went down to the field level, took a picture. That was great. It was so much fun to experience a win amongst some of the most passionate fans in football. And I think that definitely contributes to its crowd atmosphere ranking. What about you, Tyler? What was your favorite aspect of Highmark Stadium?
My favorite aspect was by far the song. The song is something I've never seen in the NFL Stadium. Buffalo Bills make me want to shout, hey, 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 Buffalo Bills make me want to shout. That was so much fun. I love that. It's a crime if they don't do that in the next stadium, but I'm sure they will keep that.
Yeah, that was awesome. It truly did feel like I was at a college stadium again, learning the chants and doing it. Um, Something about Tyler that you guys should know is that most stadiums don't do that, so he injects them anyway. He just does them to the tune of K-State chants and replaces them with, the team mascot of whatever team he's rooting for, or the stadium we're in, because that's how much we appreciate a good fan atmosphere, and that's how much Tyler enjoys a good song at a game to get the fans riled up. So Tyler didn't have to make up a song this time because there was already one ready for him. That's one excellent part of Highmark Stadium.
And so with that, we do have to end the episode with the story of what Zach is referencing. And it always goes back to that infamous 2023 game, Dallas Cowboys versus Detroit Lions. Zach is an infamous Lions fan. We all know he likes the black and blue division. I was going there to root on the Cowboys for various reasons, but I was rooting on the Cowboys that game. And so at K-State, where our alma mater is, they've got a chant called KSU Wildcats, and they say that a couple times. So in Dallas, me and one of my other friends were saying DAL Cowboys, DAL Cowboys, like DAL Cowboys. So we were making up the chants, and it was so fun. So seeing the "Let's Go Buffalo" song brought back lots of great college memories.
At this point,
it's so much fun. I had a great time.
I'm glad you brought that context. At this point, we've talked about this game in so many different ways without actually bringing up the game. We should just never talk about it. It should just be an inside joke that everyone knows. This game is just it exists somewhere. We both were there, but nobody could talk about what happened there.
Nobody can talk about what happened.
I mean, for a while, Tyler and I had to make a rule that we could not talk about how that game ended. But we're going to break that rule for you guys at some point and talk about it on the podcast because we have to break it down. If we're the ref guys and we're not breaking down one of the most controversial calls of the last, decade, what are we doing, right? So eventually you guys will know the full context of why we keep bringing up this game. That game was still fun, still had a great time, just ended in a very controversial way. But that's about all we had related to Highmark Stadium. Hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to check out some of the short form content where we tally up all of the vertical video that we got and kind of do a little voiceover of our experience. I will insert some clips here and there in this video. I'm sure you've seen them already, but if you want more additional Highmark content, please check out that short form content on our YouTube shorts. But until next stadium, thanks for watching.
Appreciate you guys.